Our brain requires a great deal of energy to operate, particularly when we have to concentrate and think about something. Problem solving or making a decision not only uses more brain energy, it also can be a slow process. So our brain seeks to conserve energy by developing efficient ways of operating. One way it does this is through conscious and subconscious processing. Our brain seeks to automate much of what we do to save us time and brain energy. These are our brain's subconscious processes. They take care of our basic life functioning, our fight or flight response, and our learned behaviors and habits. We don't really think about these things, they just happen on autopilot or have become second nature. In fact, up to 95% of all our behaviors and reactions happen at the subconscious level. Our subconscious is also involved in the recording and storing of our experiences and knowledge, forming our memories. These are stored in our brain like photos in a picture album, which we can refer back to later. The way we think and feel about these experiences forms a frame around the photo. This is how we give people, objects, or events meaning. Over time, this is how our attitudes develop. For the most part, our subconscious processes help us navigate the world efficiently. Yet sometimes we might develop unhelpful habits or attitudes that prevent us from achieving our goals. This is where more conscious thinking can benefit us. Our conscious processing involves our higher thinking capacity, where we can be more mindful and considered in what we think, feel, and do. We can use conscious thinking to reprogram our subconscious and change our thoughts, attitudes, and habits. While thinking consciously takes more energy, it is how we take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.
All right, let me get my volume together. And let me fix my screen. All right. I want to welcome everybody to episode 7. We moving fast now. Now we starting to get into some of the things that I like to talk about. You know, we did the little introduction and the the build up. So now we're gonna start getting into the topics that I really like to discuss and the things that are really profound in our reality as we deal with them on an everyday basis. So the topic for today is subliminal messaging and the subconscious mind, right? Applications, different methods. I'm going to show you some examples of subliminal messaging, and then we're going to try to take it a little bit deeper, and we're going to look at it, the logic behind it, right? The metaphysics behind why would somebody even need to message you subliminally, right? What's wrong with just saying exactly how you feel and directly to the individual, right? Well, marketing really doesn't work like this, right? So for starters, I'm going to bring up and define what subliminal is. You can bring up this first screen for me. Basically right here we have a simple definition for subliminal. Something that is not easily perceived but may be remembered due to constant repetition. Key word in this definition right here is repetition, right? It also means below the threshold of consciousness or apprehension, specific, involving or using stimuli intended to take effect subconsciously by repetition. So the idea behind subliminal messaging is repetition, right? That's one of the main concepts behind this. Saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's like a form of gaslighting, right? Is convincing people that, hey, this product is exactly what it is because we keep emphasizing that this product is great. There's also the concept of secretly placing products like Coca-Cola or Pepsi in movies as a form of advertising, right? So on a commercial level, we're all familiar with subliminal messaging, right? All of us are.
I mean, there's like a Coca-Cola right there.
And, you know, like even right now, right? I'm doing a subtle form of messaging on my show. I'm not directly advertising anything, but you could clearly see that I'm engaging in a subtle product placement, right? So expanding on this a little bit, right? I'm gonna go over this little article about a brief history of subliminal messaging, and we're gonna look at some of the myths associated with it, and we're gonna look at some of the facts associated with it. So this particular article that I'm going to share is from Oregon State University, and this was a short paper that somebody wrote about subliminal messaging. So if you want to slide to the screen so they can read along with us. Subliminal messages have been tested and examined for over 50 years. The first outbreak of hysteria culminated in the late 1950s when a man by the name of James Vicari used subliminal projection in his movie theater as a form of advertising aimed at getting customers to buy popcorn and soda pop. Vicari claimed it to be an innocent form of advertisement, but when word got out about his efforts, the general population became extremely offended and fearful of this subconscious tactic. Vicari also made it clear that if the FCC banned this form of advertising, he would do everything he could do to stop it. So before I go a little bit deeper, when he did this experiment under false pretenses, right? He manipulated a lot of the data after he did the experiment, and he made it seem like after the movie, everybody ran out to buy Coca-Cola, and he kind of fabricated his results. So what we have here is like early in the efforts to study the subconscious mind and subliminal messaging, it already started off with a lie, right? Because the guy that was responsible for formulating the idea fabricated his results. Continuing on, another group highly interested in this form of subconscious manipulation was the CIA. In its earlier attempts and trials of subliminal perception, the CIA was mainly interested in effectiveness that subliminal persuasion had on people. This was due to the efforts of the CIA was making in an attempt to come up with more mind-controlling oriented forms of power. It was not long until legislators in Washington, D.C., along with the FCC, became interested with this new form of advertisement. In 1957, Utah Legislative Representative William Dawson crusaded against any form of subliminal messaging, claiming that the knowledge about this form of media was all too little and inconclusive for it to be put into the hands of money-hungry advertisers and companies. So we see already in the 1950s, so when we get into like esoteric symbolism and when we get into occultism, you're going to see that subliminal messaging has been around since antiquity, right? There's a lot of subliminal messaging in the Bible. There's a lot of subliminal messaging in a lot of the religious texts because a large portion of our reality revolves around manipulation of the mind, right? The first known experiment was in 1956. A special projector was installed in a Fort Lee, New Jersey movie theater by a New York City firm, Subliminal Projection Company. For a 6-week period, they flashed the words "drink Coca-Cola" and "hungry, eat popcorn" across the screen, every 5 seconds at the subliminal level of 1/3000th of a second. Subliminal projects reported that the cell increased but would not release the exact states. So basically, they tried to reproduce the original experiment that this Vicari guy had fabricated, right? And we're going to get into what the results were, but right here at this particular time, they didn't want to release that information because now we're going to get into speculation. What most likely happened is they realized that they were making a profound impact on the things that people were buying, and they wanted to keep these results from the public. The FCC definition of subliminal message: subliminal projection is a technique of projecting information below the viewing audience's threshold of sensation or awareness. It involves flashing a message lasting only a fraction of a second on the TV screen. Theoretically, a viewer could receive such a message without realizing it, he or she had observed it. So like back in the 1950s and 1960s, if you remember, they used to have the national anthem on TV. And One of the things that they used to do on the national anthem was flash words um, underneath the lyrics of the song. And it wasn't really nothing negative. It was just saying like things like "God bless America." I'm gonna see if I find the video and I'll show it to you at the end of the stream. And that's my fault. I should have actually had a video that already queued up, but I'll find it for the end of the show. But basically, the whole idea revolves around it is by injecting these subtle images in the background of movies and in the background of music, right? You influence the subconscious mind. Now, before I continue with this article, I'm going to give you some examples of how these things really work. So, we're going to go through this little article real quick and we're going to look at different examples of how the subliminal message is used in advertising and marketing, and how subtle it is that you might not even really notice that there's a picture hidden within a picture. For anyone who had doubts, yes, subliminal messages and marketing do exist, and no, they do not have to be something negative like the name suggests. In fact, it is highly likely that you have come across some form of subliminal message on TV, the internet, or in magazines. Do you know how to detect them? Normally, you won't realize it, but subliminal advertising has a purpose and communicates what it wants. Marketing with subliminal messages aims to encourage the purchase of the product through subtle effects that are not normally visible to the naked eye. So again, the whole concept behind this is the subconscious, right? If you can see somebody actively trying to finesse you, right? That's more of what you call product placement, right? Me placing Coca-Cola or a pack of M&Ms into the camera is not really subliminal because you can see it with your eyes. So I'm not doing it subtle, but the effect of it overall is subtle, right? So if we see somebody like LeBron James drinking a Sprite, right? Then we attach drinking a Sprite to social status. And this is why companies look for high name celebrities and famous people to advertise their products, right? Because they want to establish some type of link between this person and the product. Is the reason why Jordan sneakers are one of the best selling shoes of all time, right? Because subliminally, right, subconsciously, people associate Jordan with greatness, and objectively, he in the NBA, right, he was one of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest, right? So now we have a situation now of you wearing his shoes, right? Subconsciously, you feel in some form or fashion linked to the greatness of Michael Jordan because that's the legacy that they created for that name, right? So continuing on, we're gonna look at some examples of subliminal messaging. I'll put a link for the article. I don't want to get into like every single line in the article because it's not my article. I did not write the article, right? But I do want to use the examples. So with this first one, we have the picture from the selfie from the Oscars. And a lot of people remember this picture, right? Because it had a lot of famous people, a lot of people that are involved in some scandals right now. A lot of famous Hollywood people. Now, the object behind this, it was real subtle, right? This picture was taken with a Samsung camera. It was an advertised to anybody that it was. But, you know, the people behind the scenes knew that this camera, when people would see this picture and attach it to all these famous people, that they was going to ask, what camera did you take that with, right? Because the picture looks really clear. So let's look. Sometimes a subliminal advert is not a well-worked image or visual illusion. Sometimes these adverts just happen because a specific product is always there or in the background without being evident. This is what we call product placement, and it is certain when certain products or locations are repeatedly shown on TV shows or in films. Samsung took this one step further, and regardless whether it was all staged, which it seems as though it was, the selfie that Ellen DeGeneres took at the Oscar celebration in 2014 was a huge welcome for the brand. They were the global sponsor of these awards, but they confirmed they never planned for the TV presenter to get together some of the most popular faces in Hollywood for a picture. The photo taken with a Samsung is a great example that shows marketing with a subliminal message done well can be very effective. Again, Samsung got free advertising, right? Just by having their product available at an event that they sponsored for famous Hollywood celebrities, right? And this is how subliminal messaging works. Sometimes you just need to have your product available. Marlboro and Ferrari. One of the biggest controversies ever related to subliminal messages happened in one of the favorite advertising places for the tobacco and alcohol industry, Formula One. In fact, next to monthly magazines, this is one of the few places left where they can still advertise. That's why Marlboro has been advertising in the world of motorsports for years. However, because of the laws banning the advertising of these products, they have had to innovate and advertise themselves in a more subtle way. At one point, all of the tobacco brand logos were removed from the cars due to these restrictions. However, Marlboro cleverly got around this ban by creating a more subtle design. They simulated a tobacco packet by painting a barcode on the back of the car, as you can see in the following image. So basically what they did was they painted the colors of the car to simulate a pack of Marlboros because they can't actively put the Marlboro logo on the car. So what they did is they created a situation where they just made the car look like a pack of Marlboros, and this is the way they get their advertising off. This is Futurama and the Popular Party. This is one of the examples of marketing with subliminal messages where sound is important. It comes from Futurama, an animated series that has been moving from channel to channel in Spain for a number of years. In one of the episodes, one of the main characters called Bender hums a well-known song, and it wasn't a coincidence why it happened. In the original version of this episode, the character hummed the hymn of the Republican Party of the United States. When they translated the show into Spanish, they had to find a suitable substitute related to the political right. In this case, it wasn't the Partido Popular who were the ones who chose to send the message. It was the Republican Party from the original version. So let's see what happens on this particular clip right here. Do I need to make it full screen? Hold on.
Yeah, make it full screen for us.
Was the volume on?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically they basically just recorded him. Excuse me, I got my volume now. They basically just recorded him in the process of humming the Republican Party tune. So before we continue, Paul, do you have a napkin over there?
I can get you one. I got you one.
Okay. Toblerone or Toblerone. Sometimes brands and their logos can become so familiar that we don't realize the real significance behind their design. In fact, every logo is thought of and designed based on a set of objectives that define the brand, and that is how it becomes their hallmark. In Toblerone's case, its logo wants to take us to the Alps, their origin of their chocolate. Through the image of the mountain, they want to bring you to the Cervino Mountain, the 5th highest peaks in the Alps. But how does the brand do to tell us more about their origin? If you look at the image of the mountain, you will see hidden in a silhouette a bear. That is the animal that connects Toblerone with Berna, the town of its origin. So right here you can see kind of like the outline of the bear superimposed. I don't know if I can make the screen any bigger than that.
Click it and then say open in image in a new tab. Did it do it? The top.
Is it there? Right here.
Now hold control and use the middle mouse button and scroll it and scroll. Hold control on the keyboard and then use the middle mouse button to scroll up or down. You ain't gotta.
I got it. It's just not out. Well, I think they could see it. I mean,
They can see it.
this is just a bear silhouette. You can see it like superimposed in front of the mountain. Go ahead, zoom that up real quick. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get chocolate on the mouth. I was eating the M&M's.
It's probably like 150 now, but put it back to 100%. You can always have it. Like
Okay.
the next page you might go to, and it might still be zoomed in.
Yeah. So basically, this This bear is superimposed on the image of a mountain. This is real subtle. Like anybody that works with like graphic web design and does logos and things, these are the kind of like methods that they would use. Kind of clever. All right, let's go back to
See how it zoomed in now? It's all the way zoomed in. There you go.
All right, so this next one is Pepsi. Pepsi did a marketing campaign a few years ago where they released these bottle caps where it says "Help me, I'm trapped in Sobe factory," and a lot of people took this and went super left field with it, and they thought that they had like workers trapped inside the factories and stuff like that. So sometimes subliminal messaging don't really work. This is an example of marketing with a subliminal message where the brand later admitted their intention. It created a panic because a lot of people found a message printed on the inside of their bottle top saying, "Help me, trapped in Sobe factory." In fact, a lot of people shared it on social networks thinking they were raising the alarm for a worker who was in danger. However, it was a subliminal marketing campaign. Their intention wasn't to cause any distress. It was just trying to bring a smile to people's faces. Unfortunately, it didn't work quite in the way they had hoped. The Simpsons and Futurama. So like now with the Simpsons, a lot of us are familiar with the Simpsons and how they always use predictive programming, and for whatever reason they seem to have a good idea of events that happen before they happen. Now that's not exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about subliminal messaging. So if you ever watched the show Futurama is created by the same producers of The Simpsons, right? So prior to them releasing the Futurama show, they wanted to make sure that they let their viewers know that they were bringing the show out. So what they did was they subtly inserted like key phrases during the show. And they had characters like wear the t-shirts of the Futurama show on the show. And it was just like subtly putting people in the head like, what is Futurama, right? It was just creating curiosity as to what is this. So the legendary Simpsons, the legendary series The Simpsons is full of hidden messages and references that you probably may not have noticed, like this one. Before the first ever episode of the series Futurama aired, the creators of The Simpsons gave a subtle shout out to the audience to make sure they would watch the new TV show. As you can see in the image, during the credits, the words "Watch Futurama" were placed between the first name and surname of executive producer David Cohen. So this is something that they did intentionally, right? Now this I don't know if this would classify as subliminal, right? Because you can see it, but it's the subtlety of it because nobody knows what Futurama is yet. So it's building the curiosity for something that hasn't came yet. So
I just want to say that there is some sort of problem with the unified chat today. I don't know what it is. I tried to troubleshoot it. I tried to refresh it. It's erroring out. So
talking to Facebook chat.
Right. So if anybody's watching
the Facebook chat is available.
On any other platform, if you want to, you could just watch on Facebook, and then all the chat will be all in one at that point.
I'm a little bit behind on the chat, so I can't really respond directly. But at the end of the show, I'll go back and I'll we can't have nobody chime in today, right? That's what you're saying. That
no, what we can't have people chime in is just that like. Usually I got this window open and it has all the chats from all the platforms all on one window. Today it's not working. All right, so we're going to pull up the Facebook one here in a second. I couldn't get the other one to work, but carrying on with the subtlety of Futurama on this dude's shirt on that picture right there.
Yeah, so like basically they just inserted it into a lot of the characters on the show that were wearing like these Futurama things. Now this next one is the logo for Sony, right? A lot of people see this logo for Sony and they don't really know what it means. And basically what it means is a combination of the analog and digital concept of radio communication, which is what Sony specializes in, right? Sony Viao's logo is one that hides a hidden message that can't be seen that easily. If you look closely, the design of the word Viao shows the symbol of analog and digital that defines the two worlds in which the brand works. It is a clever use of advertising and subliminal marketing because it is not supposed to be understood or appreciated by everyone so easily. So this is an example of esoteric messaging, subliminal, right? is not intended for everybody to understand. So when we get into esoteric symbolism and we get into occultism, right, you're going to start to learn how a lot of these symbols that they use and a lot of these symbols in the secret societies are not meant for you to understand. That's why a lot of people, when you bring it up, they don't have an understanding of it. They're like, well, what are you talking about? Because it really wasn't meant for you. I don't think that was Sony's intention with this one. I think this one was just a way to cleverly hide the analog and digital aspects of what it is they work with in the radio and communication. So this next one is KFC. So I don't know if you guys remember when they came out with these dollar snackers. They were really promoting these really heavy. And one of the things they did was they turned one of the little pieces of lettuce in the snacker into a dollar bill. If you think this is just a simple hamburger advert, then you have to wait until the end. You will see how a lettuce leaf has changed into a dollar bill. What was the point of it? The brand itself said that the ticket was put there for a competition in which the first 1,000 people who saw it could participate. However, seeing as no contest had been announced, this answer seems implausible and hard to believe. This is why after a few studies, they came to the conclusion that the marketing with a subliminal message they used was trying to achieve something else. It was a KFC strategy to try to relate the brand with cheap prices in a subconscious way. So by turning the lettuce into $1, they were trying to reinforce the concept that the sandwich is only $1. So let's see how they pulled it off in the video.
Say, huh? Hey, I found $1 in your couch. You fit?
You sure?
It's $1. It won't get me anything these days.
You could turn that $1 into a KFC snacker.
What?
The snacker's only 99 cents.
Then come to Buffalo.
Honey barbecue, ultimate cheese.
Today, I am a wealthy man. Spare me here.
Big taste, big variety, small coin. The 99-cent snacker is...
So right there. Right there. We see the dollar bill. Hold on.
Yo, it's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's just sitting there. So what they did with this, they were trying to reinforce the concept that the thing is only $1, right? So that's basically the idea behind this whole. This is how subliminal messaging works on a grander scale, right? So a lot of us, have Super Bowl parties, right? And we have Tostitos, right? And Tostitos, the whole concept with them is in the logo, they have two people sharing a nacho over a bowl of salsa, which is a pretty clever way to insert what it is that you're selling as a product and what is the mission of your product, right? To bring people together happy and share chips watching a game or something. Tostitos is another logo that has a hidden message and is not designed by accident. In fact, even though it contains a subliminal message, it is one that can be seen quite easily. The two T's in the middle of the word look like two people eating a Tostito and dipping it in salsa. With this image, the brand is trying to encourage their customers to consume the product. So the logo itself is not really subliminal, but what is subliminal is the message, right? It's they're trying to promote to you that, hey, when you buy our product, get a friend, eat your chips. That's the message behind it that they're doing subtly. So almost every major product uses this in some form or way. Snooty Peacock. Can you see two things in the image of Snooty Peacock? Right? This is a jeweler company. And you can see that they have two clear images here. They have a woman with partially covering her face. This is the woman's hair. And then you can also see the peacock. This is the peacock's head, and this is the feathers of the peacock. And this will be... So what they did was they made two images out of one, right? They made the image of both a woman with one eye closed, and they also have the peacock. This image plays with optical illusions that, depending where your focus is, you will see either one image or another. The typical example of this being the glass that shows two faces. The logo shows on one hand a woman with a chain around her neck, and the other a peacock. The illustration is designed to allude to the elegance of the brand in the form of the peacock and also the unique women who make the jewelry. So again, this is just another clever design. They're just subtly letting you know. I thought this one was pretty cool too. Spartan Golf Club, right? This is another example of a logo which is based on an optical illusion. Is the corporate logo of Spartan Golf Club, which hides a double message. On one hand, you can see a person playing golf. So right here, you see somebody swinging a golf club. And this is, if you ever played like the golf games on PlayStation or Xbox, when you're swinging the golf meter, you know this is the little meter that you use to swing the golf. But it's also the helmet of the Spartan. If you see this right here, this is the face, and this is the Spartan helmet right here. So if you was to ever look side by side of a Spartan helmet, so what they did was they superimposed two images from one. As you can see, marketing with subliminal messages is not exclusive to any one specific channel. In fact, subliminal advertising can be used in both emails such as landing pages or on social networks. That's why in order to dedicate enough time to the content, it's important that you have a digital marketing platform that lets you work where all channels form the same too. So basically, these people are explaining to you that this is something that is very popular in the marketing world, right? Now, I'm going to play a short video real quick, and these are going to give you some more examples of how subliminal messaging is used in the... let the ad play real quick before you put it on full screen.
Most common question we get is what's the difference between level 3A and our exclusive level 3A?
Oh, sorry about that. Hold on.
Is it back?
You're good.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
People will try all kinds of tricks to get you to do what they want.
Oh man, this shit sucks. I just lost the video, dude.
I'm just getting started and I need to save money. Inkfile gave
Sorry
me the
about
best service for the best price.
As a freelancer,
So now getting back to this article that I was talking about earlier, I wanted you guys to visualize how it is that subliminal advertising is used in marketing, because that's just one aspect of subliminal. Subliminal messaging gets a lot more deeper and more attacks the subconscious way more. That's just on the advertising level. So let's continue with this article. The author goes on to assert that the popular history of information processing without awareness is sometimes called shadow or mask information and sometimes referred to as peripheral information, but commonly known by the public under one general label as subliminal communication, is really a history of modern manipulation. So the whole history with this has always been revolved in manipulating the human consciousness, right? This is why people study psychology, right? Okay. Psychology is a real profound study because it's a study of how the brain operates, And if you're an individual and you're not studying this, right, and somebody else is, then you're in a position where you're going to allow yourself to get manipulated, right? Again, this doesn't mean that you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you're an idiot. It means that you don't have access to information that somebody else does. We talked about this in the communication show, right? How the guy at the beginning had the book. So if the guy at the beginning, let's take religion out of it. If the guy at the beginning has a book that shows you how the mind works and you never read this book and he did, who do you think is going to have the advantage on interpersonal communication?
The guy that read the book.
Exactly. This is why it's important that we also have access to this information so we can see what it is, the tactics that they use.
Absolutely.
So, continuing on, he refers to Vance Packer's hidden persuasives, which appeared in 1957. Quotes from the Sunday Times, an account of a New Jersey theater in which ice cream ads were flashed onto the screen during a movie showing. That resulted in an otherwise unaccountable increase in ice cream sales. The Times referred to this technology as sub-threshold effects. Now, the only issue with this particular book, I read this particular book, but this particular book referenced the Vicari experiment that happened around that same year. The Vicari experiment was the motivation for this book, right? And it's a good book, but some of the information they reference is based on a flawed, fabricated, controlled test. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, but there were people later on down the line that recreated this particular experiment and got empirical results. So we're going to see how it played out. The author says that Packer's work warned of psychologists turned merchandisers and for the result of the psycho-seduction of the American consumer. From belief systems to product identification, Packard presented a case for persuasion through the art and science of motivational analysis, feedback, and psychological manipulation. Hidden Persuaders was the first open attempt to inform the general public of a potentially Orwellian means to enslave the mind and to do so surreptitiously. Okay? So, this was before YouTube, right? So the whole argument that conspiracy theories and the idea of people trying to become whistleblowers about people, this existed way before. It existed before the computer. People have been writing about conspiracies, about people trying to take over your mind for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Because they always knew that it was a part of the reality that we live in.
They knew it was a science. Like it was just, like you said, it's part of the system. It's already integrated, and they're trying to open people's eyes and make a realization that these things happen every day, all day, right? And the logo. And we just accept it, but we just ignore it at the same time and don't allow, what am I thinking of? It's just better to understand and be aware of your surroundings than just to be walking around blindly.
Yeah, so like I told y'all in the first episode, people always wanted to know like what is these big secrets that a lot of these organizations be keeping secret. It's this information, is mass hypnosis, is subliminal programming, is how to program the subconscious mind, right? It's all these psychological aspects of reality that we take for granted because we are so worried about sports or whatever drama's happening, right? Not only that, but we take a lot of these characteristics and we apply them to our everyday life, right? Because a lot of us like to do subliminal messaging, right? We're feeling some type of way about somebody. So rather than go out there to that person and say how we really feel, right? We'll just do some, we'll make a vague, indirect,
a subliminal pose on Facebook about something.
Because that's where the world is operating on this whole passive aggressive beat around the bush type of mentality, right? It's always, nobody really wants to just come out and just say how they really feel no more. The marketers don't do this, right? Advertisers don't do this.
Right.
So they beat around the bush. Just like when you go buy breakfast, right? You go buy breakfast from the supermarket and you look at your products that you buy for your breakfast, the eggs, and you look at the bacon, and you look at the milk, and you look at the cheese, and you look at all these things, and the imagery that they have on the packaging is of a fresh farm. Sunshine, the farm looks really nice, right? It's super nice. It just looks so peaceful and serene. Yeah. They don't tell you that they're growing these chickens in a factory, right? Injecting them with steroids. They don't tell you that the pigs that they're getting the bacon from are literally walking around in their own shit, right? They don't have that image on the packaging because if they told you that, you wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
So this subliminally got to convince you that this shit comes from something that's happy and clean and serene. That's how you finesse an individual, bro.
Right.
And it's really that simple.
There was a question asking about what's the McDonald's emblem logo about?
McDonald's is just a letter sign. It's the 13th letter of the alphabet. So M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, right? I want to show you what McDonald's is. Let me Google something real quick. You're not really gonna understand this if you are not into esotericism, right? But for my people that do understand esotericism, right, they're gonna know this is what you can click on my screen real quick. This is what the 13th letter of the alphabet is the number 13, right? And the tarot card is the 13th card of the tarot is death, right? So you could say subconsciously, right, on an esoteric level, this is not, McDonald's is not going to openly come on and say this is what they advertising, because I know for a fact this is not what their idea behind is. But esoterically, the 13th letter of the alphabet is M, and 13 is a number that's always been affiliated with death. And when you eat McDonald's, that's what you're putting in your body. You are putting death in your body. You're killing yourself, one, right? Because you're eating your junk food. And not only that, you're putting food in your body that was grown and processed in factories where death and decay was the primary cause of consumption. So subconsciously, on an esoteric level, that's what McDonald's represents. If you really want to, we ain't even get into that yet. I just wanted to throw that out there because that's how deep we gonna go down the rabbit hole. But that's just an example of esoteric symbolism, of occult symbolism, right? Because subliminal messaging works in a marketing world, but it also works on a psychological, on a deeper thing. So I'm gonna continue with this article. Wilson Bryan Key in his book Subliminal Seduction in 1974 and Clam Plate Orgy in 1981 argues that not only are we being subliminally merchandised today, but the public has been subliminally seduced for hundreds of years. Key, a Canadian university professor, sums it all up in the title to a third book on the subject, Media Sexploitation, written in 1977. So again, this is a university professor giving you this information. So regardless of what you feel about me as an individual and my personal opinions, this is a subject that is studied by high-level academics who have the credentials to objectively say we are being subliminally programmed and manipulated. So, in this author's work, Subliminal Communication, 1990, he discussed the earliest modern reference he had found on the subject of subliminal communication. According to Benjamin Woolman, subliminal research is at least as old as Suslowa's work in 1863, where he reported an increase in the 2-point discrimination threshold as a function of subliminal electrical stimulation. In 1894, W.R. Dunham, M.D., wrote an interesting commentary on the subliminal mind and subliminal communication. Nearly 100 years later, Dunham's essay reads much like current research on the subject. In The Science of Vital Force, Dunham demonstrated the existence of both subliminal mind and subliminal communication. Okay, so now we're in 2020, right? These people have been researching these topics when our granddaddies was still in their daddy's balls, right? We wasn't even conceived yet. Our ancestors, our grandfathers weren't even conceived yet, and they were already working on the concept of subliminal programming and how does it work. Right?
Writing books about it, gathering information about it,
studying
so then the psychology of it.
Then what baffles me is that we come out here when people try to share this information, we come out here and we try to be like, oh, well, you don't necessarily know what you're talking about, right? We all are very naive to what really goes on in this world because we like to think that the people that give us our information have our best interests at heart. We talked about how everything is a business, right? We talked about how medicine was a business. That's a perfect matter of fact. Let's talk about that real quick. Subliminal messaging at its finest. Medical commercials, right? When they're about to give you, they're literally handing out medication for herpes, right? But in the commercial, they don't show you a woman that's living a promiscuous lifestyle, right? And that's probably how she got herpes. They show you a woman in a very loving, committed relationship, and she's holding hands with her husband,
Walking
and they're riding
down the
bikes.
beach. Right.
How did you get herpes? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. You got herpes by being promiscuous or being in a relationship with somebody promiscuous. Tell the truth.
Right.
Don't give a false image of, oh, well, you know, I was living this healthy life and me and my husband were happily married and I just got herpes out of nowhere and I'm just going to continue living my happy life by taking this medication. You see what I'm saying? The ridiculousness behind it?
Side effects include diarrhea, nausea, headache, and hives.
It's ridiculous when you go back and look in retrospect. It's just ridiculous. So, like, there's some little scientific terminology here. I'm going to read it. If you guys don't understand it, it's okay, but I'm going to read it just for the sake of reading it. Professor Benjamin B. Woolman's modified categorization of subliminal stimuli divides descriptive values into 5 criteria of awareness and unawareness. The stimulus is below the level of registration, above the level of registration, but below the level of detection, above the level of detection and discrimination, but below the level of identification, below the level of identification only because of a defensive action. Then he goes on to say, subliminal stimulus does leave an influence upon the content of subsequent cognition. So if you're getting brain aneurysm trying to understand all of this, he's basically just confirming in scientific terms the effects that subliminal messaging has on the human mind. So I'm going to leave a link for this article here so you guys can go over the scientific aspects on your own so you can see, because I don't want to bore you to death reading a bunch of scientific things. But I will read this particular area right here where it talks about economic factors and technology and how the media works, because this is very important. The economic factors of the media induce product placement, which is the practice of integrating specific products and brands into filmed entertainment. Although there is still an occasional payment by the manufacturer for key placement, in the majority of deals nowadays, no cash changes hands. Rather, the client supplies goods or equipment for use in filming or tosses in some extra product for the crew. Product placement is embedded in film. There is no mute button for subliminal message, thus people's attentions are drawn to products without an influence to buy. They gain credible endorsements from the show or actor using the product. The cost is low compared to other types of promotion or advertising. You can reach an audience at less than $1 per 1,000. In the following films, the product placement observed is as follows. In the movie What Women Want, there were several cases of product placement. Winston cigarettes, Foster's beer, and Legs pantyhose, just to name a few. In the movie Castaway, it was the Wilson volleyball, FedEx delivery, and the Swiss Army knife. All of these items are used as casual background in the movie. Another odd economic factor was the BMWs in the movie Finding Forrester. BMW has their corporate office right next to the Sony corporate office. Whether or not that is an economic factor is undocumented, but it does seem like a connection. So basically, you know, subliminal messaging is part of the filmmaking process, right? When these guys are making these movies, they're making the movies with the intent to deliver a message to the subconscious. The movie itself, the message of the movie itself might be a delivery on the subconscious, right? So if you ever seen the movie Mother with what's the chick from Hunger Games? What's her name?
I know who you're talking about. I'm kind of bad with all those.
Oh my God, I'm
names.
horrible with the names. But the chick from Hunger Games, she made a movie, and the movie's called Mother. And this is a real deep occult movie, right? But the subliminal message of the movie itself is the relationship that God has with humanity, right? So in the movie, her name is Eve, right? And she is playing the character of a pregnant wife. So the literal interpretation of what it is, she's just a married housewife that's going through some things, right? But the subliminal message behind her is she is Earth, right? She is Earth. And the movie is basically a relationship between Mother Earth and God, the creator, right? Or whoever you feel the creator is. And the movie shows a dysfunctional marriage, a dysfunctional relationship, but it's really telling the subliminal message of the dysfunctional relationship that God has with Earth. And this is how they hide the message in the movies.
Jennifer Lawrence
and Javier Bardem, right?
Yes.
And all through the movie, you see these images and you see these ideas, and it's not really making sense if you watch the movie, unless you look at it from a subliminal, subconscious view and view it as her being Earth and her husband being the concept of God or the idea of God.
Okay.
All right. There are many technologies used in the movie industry. There are a few that are quite closely attached to subliminal messages. These include the cameras, editing equipment, and special effects equipment. There are many types of cameras used in filming movies. Though the subliminal message generally comes from the type of camera work done rather than the camera itself, the camera has a strong effect on how the scene looks in its final edition. For example, a scene may require a wide-angle shot for which a specific camera is used. Excuse me. There are messages attached to the way a scene is shot, and in order to capture the scene appropriately to a specific type of camera required. Thus, the technology used does affect the message in the media. So, a director that was really good with this was Stanley Kubrick, right? And Stanley Kubrick was the guy who directed Space Odyssey 2001.
You're going to lose that screen for 1 second.
Okay. He directed Eyes Wide Shut. He directed a lot of movies that had The Shining. Have you ever seen the original Shining, the Stephen King?
Yeah.
He was the director. He's the one that put all the symbolism with the twins standing in the hallway. Real creepy, right? Because that's what directors do. They try to create a lot of imaging with the way they use the cinematography in the film. So, continuing on.
The subliminal messages in the film.
Yeah.
Red Rum.
Exactly. Red Rum is murder backwards, right? But you have to look into the mirror to see that, right? So the subliminal message in The Shining was that Jack, the character in the movie, was going through this bipolar kind of disconnection with his conscience. Right. So he was seeing his shadow self in the mirror. That's why he would see his real self. He would see Red Rum, but when he would go and look into the mirror, it would look on the other way murder. That was his alter ego. Right. So continuing on. Another technology to keep in mind is the editing tools. These include digital computer hardware and software, as well as large-scale editing tables. Many studios use high-power laptops to do out-of-studio editing. An example for this is that LucasArts used an Apple PowerBook G3 combined with Apple's Final Cut Pro video editing software when shooting Star Wars Episode 1 in the desert. This software can also be used to insert digitally mastered clips that flash on and off screen unbeknownst to viewers, delivering very effective messages. Now, I know this for a fact because we have a lot of high-tech equipment here that we could use. We're probably only using like maybe half of the capabilities that we have here.
We got the green screen coming up in the future. We got all kinds
I
of
can
stuff.
do an episode on the moon if I wanted to. And I might do an episode on the moon when we start talking about space. I might just turn the whole studio into the moon or Jupiter or Mars or whatever, right? Because this is what NASA does. NASA uses this kind of subliminal kind of, to convince you that their satellites are really worth the $50 billion investment that taxpayers make every year. But that's a show for itself. Continuing on. The Media Motion Picture Association of America controls the motion picture media. There is a board of directors who are chairmen and presidents of 7 major producers and distributors of motion pictures and TV. Walt Disney, Sony Pictures, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, which is MGM, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, Universal Studios, and Warner Brothers. That's it. You don't make a movie, your movie doesn't get distributed unless you're going through one of these major marketing, right? And just for shits and giggles, all the CEOs of these companies are the same demographic. I'll let you figure that out for yourself. To elicit a few examples of controlling media, the use of DreamWorks film Castaway is effective. Well, I'm not. This is really not really relevant. This is just explaining the way movie companies work. So some movie companies have the capacity to put products in their thing independently of the distributor, but for the most part, the distributors the idea to put products in there comes from the top, right? They might have a backdoor deal that they worked out. I want this in your movie, or your movie doesn't come out. It's that type of party that's going on in Hollywood,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
My buddy at Coca-Cola said he wants to get some advertising. Let's use Walt Disney for an example, right? Walt Disney and the CEO of Coca-Cola work out a deal that Disney movies will advertise Coca-Cola products in their film, right? You can put the brain screen up too, because I want to talk about this. So what happens is Disney releases a memo to all its directors that are making films. Hey, emphasize product placement with Coca-Cola. It could be just a simple email memo. Emphasize product placement with Coca-Cola, right? If they see for whatever reason that the directors of these films didn't implement that directive, then they just chop the movie and then they won't put it out there. Or they'll make sure it doesn't get released until this information is inserted. There's a lot of power in advertising. A lot of power, a lot of favors that people could do. Earlier in the article, he clearly explained that the cash is very rarely exchanged among people this high up, right? They do favors for a favor. I own a company that does construction. You own a company that does, I don't know, movie work. You need a set built. I do it. I build you the set. We work out the negotiations. You do me a favor. You make me a commercial that's going to cost about the same that the set that I built for you. And now no money's exchanged. We just exchange services.
The chat also says it's the same thing with music videos, major subs being used to sway the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right before we started explaining more of this video and music stuff.
Yeah, so like with music videos, it's even deeper than subliminal messaging, right? It's social engineering.
So now you got music.
They're trying to change your moral fabric through the music and the movies, right? We talked about morality last week. And so they're taking subliminal messaging and they're taking it up, pumping it up to a higher level now, because now they're trying to take this to somewhere where they're changing the way you behave and act as an individual. So if there's anybody in the chat that want to chime in, we got a few minutes available if anybody wants to call and chime in, share some information that they might have regarding
the mic. The mic went low for some reason.
Is it up now?
I don't know why your mic went low.
Can you hear me?
Try it. Try the other headset for me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so basically
something happening over there.
We don't got no sound?
We got sound. I just think you bumped it.
Sorry for the malfunction. I'm glad it happened at the end of the show, though.
You can hear yourself in the mic.
Yeah, I can hear myself in the mic. I don't know if they can hear me out there.
As long as it sounds good to you, because what we hear is what they hear. Yeah, that sounds good again.
Yeah, so if anybody got any questions, oh, real quick, while y'all getting the questions together, you could pop up this screen with the brain right here, because I want to show people exactly what it is, areas of the brain that subliminal messaging affects. So the left side, where we're dealing with logic, facts, words of songs, and then on the right side, if you could take my screen out, because I really can't. Well, you're good. Yeah. Where we're thinking about intuition, arts, feelings. These are the areas of the brain that are affected the most by subliminal programming, right? Because these are the areas where we make a lot of our conscious decisions as individuals. it gets a lot deeper as we go along. We're gonna get a lot more deeper into what is our reality around us, and it's important that you go back and watch the other videos so you could get an understanding. Because what I'm attempting to do is to try, before I could tell you there's somebody out there attacking your morality, I have to establish what morality is. Before I could go out there and tell you somebody's attacking your mind and your thinking process, I have to explain to you what the thinking process entails. We're gonna start getting into the external world here for the month of September. I think the last few episodes that we're gonna do for August, we're gonna talk about personal finances, establishing responsible financial practices, and the family structure. And then we're gonna go and we're gonna look at how a lot of these applications like subliminal messaging and social engineering, where do they come from and who are the people doing it? So now if we could look at the chat and see if we got any questions. I can't see the chat on my screen, so you got to put it over here. I don't see any questions, so we should be all right today. Yeah, so yeah, we're basically gonna wrap it up. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out for episode 7. I'm sorry for the minor inconvenience, technical issues and stuff like that. Hopefully today's show was informative. Subliminal messaging is very real in spite of how mainstream tries to convince you that it's not as severe or it's not as influential as one is led to believe. It's illegal in the United Kingdom. It's illegal in certain parts of the world. So if it wasn't effective, there would be no reason to make it illegal. So it's a contradiction of how they portray it and how they use it, and what the scientists, right? We just went through the article and we looked at how these professors and these psychologists, what they determined based on their experiments. So again, I thank everybody for, all the support, all the love, the shares, the donations. I would like moving forward to have more people reach out as far as wanting to be guests on the show. We're gonna have a lot of good topics coming up for the month of September. I'm working on a Puerto Rico show, man, and it's gonna be a very personal show for me, considering that I'm Puerto Rican, and I really want to touch on what's been going on out there for a while. A few people remember I did the hurricane donation. I was one of many people that were doing it, but I was doing the hurricane relief thing, and something's been on my chest for years about this whole situation in Puerto Rico, and I really feel like I want to get it off my chest. So I'm just gonna do a show about it. So stay tuned for that coming in September, and it's gonna be I'm gonna get straight to the point. I really don't care about people's feelings. I really don't care about your political affiliation. I really don't care about your religious affiliation. I mean, none of that is all of that is irrelevant to me. I'm all about the facts and the truth. So that's what I'm gonna do, and we're gonna get into it. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Please like, subscribe, share. The YouTube channel is up, so if you're not able to watch live, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that's basically it. Cash App's at the top, so if anybody feels like they would like to make a donation, don't hesitate. All the donations go to production costs. Again, I can't emphasize that point enough, because I have my own sources of income to provide for my personal finances and for my family. I don't need the show to do that. The show, I do need the show to, at the very least, be able to maintain itself, though. And I want to be able to use the green screen and a lot of the technology that we have here to really give you a better quality show. So with that being said, thank you for coming out, and I'll see you guys Thursday at 5 o'clock.